I couldn't help but to record this experience. I did a video in which I put snow. This is all snow from my backyard. We're in a storm right now. We're in a blizzard. I live in Massachusetts. And I did a video, part one, where I went out and for the first time ever gathered some snow from my yard and I'm using it to brew tea. But a lot of snow produces just a small amount of water, and it wasn't really enough to get started. This is a ball rolled oolong from Global Tea Hut, and it was just starting to open when I ran out of water. And I just don't. I'm busy. I'm so busy with work. I don't want to have to edit videos or do anything like that. All these have to be quick. Hit the record button and send it out to people at this point. Maybe down the road I'll get better at editing and things like that. But for right now, I just want it to be quick. My aperture is slightly off there. There we go. Oop. That's not good. All right. Oh, two. Okay, so I made another change, which you can see right here. Is I'm using a mutton fat jade teacup. Why am I changing my teacup? Other than to kind of thump my chest and show off that I have a lot of teaware, which I do. Probably too much. Well, it's a different experience, right? This is huge for a teacup, as they always say. The more you get into tea, the smaller and smaller the vessels get. When you see true tea enthusiasts tend to be drinking from very, very small cups like this. This is probably an ounce. So it's gonna have a different effect, right? It's gonna produce different smells. In some ways, the shape is the same as far as just being very, very open, so it's gonna cool quickly. I do have mutton fat jade small cups that are more like a tulip shape, which will concentrate the odors, but also slow down the cooling process. So maybe by doing this in these smaller cups, I get to savor the experience a little bit more. Or maybe I just start knocking them back like it's like in my old whiskey days, right? It's really nice. And then, of course, the color just evokes the snow. You can taste this is snow. I don't think it's my imagination. I can taste my yard. Not in a bad way. I know sometimes you say that and people think you're talking about earthworms or something, or I don't know. This tastes like my yard. I can taste the terroir in the water, which is a bit nuts, but it's there. It just completely evokes my yard. Maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe it's not a good thing because it doesn't. There's nothing romantic about my yard. It's a nice yard. I like my yard, but I don't want my tea necessarily to taste like my yard. I want it to taste like some place I've never been to or some place I went to on vacation. Right? Something more evocative than where I mow and rake the leaves. It still tastes good, but I'm just like totally tasting my yard at this point. Like it is just like the outside is here in this cup. It's not an off taste. It's not like it's not an industrial. It's just like there was when I was growing up, I in high school I was into punk rock. And I used to go with my buddies and we would take the train into Central Square, Harvard Square, and into Boston to see all ages shows on the weekends, which were pretty inexpensive and a lot of fun. Good times. It was what got me through high school. A little. I think now of the stuff that we did as a matter of course in high school, and I don't think kids these days can get away with it. I don't think a lot of 14-year-olds from my area right now are just taking the train into Boston and seeing bands play. And I'm talking pre-COVID. I don't know that much about 14-year-old culture, but I imagine that was kind of free compared to what came after. And then, I don't know, do they still have all ages shows in the same way for where high school kid is welcome, right? Where it's like a true all ages shows, where it's kids, kids at the shows. The kids have kids of their own. And the sing-along songs will be our scriptures. To quote a wise man. I say that because one of my strongest smell association memories is T.T. the Bear's place. It's a club, now closed, in Central Square, where I saw a lot of the shows, and it was one of my favorite venues to go to, one of the first I went to. And I just remember, like, there was this smell as you turned the corner that was a distinct T.T. the Bear's smell. And it was not a bad smell. It wasn't like a CBGB's kind of sweat and urine smell. It was probably like a series of, maybe there was a Middle Eastern restaurant over here, maybe there was like a coat factory over here, maybe there was a place that produced ink. I don't know. But the combination of all these things on the street, to me, created this very distinct smell. And even when I was young, I would notice that. And it's like when I turned the corner and that smell of this neighborhood made me happy. It put me in the place where I needed to be. And then every once in, and I've lost that. I've lost the memory of that smell. Maybe it would come back to me, but I would remember every once in a while I would be in some other neighborhood or some other place, and I would just get this slight hint of that T.T. the Bear's street. It's not even the club, it's the street of that smell. And it would be like, oh, that's that T.T. the Bear's smell. And then it would fade quickly. But I've been to that street since, and it's gone. So it was a combination of some restaurant or some business that was there, or who knows, maybe someone living in the apartment was making this particular dish all the time. Who knows? There was some combination of factors that made the smell of that area really, really evocative to me. And it was subtle. It wasn't overpowering. It wasn't like just burning rubber. It was something slight, but I noticed it. And I associated it with music. And when you associate things with music, they become extremely powerful. I'm almost sweating right now, even though my basement is cold. That is probably a property of this tea. Now, I think I have enough for another round. I'm now snow tea agnostic at this point. I feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about how amazing it is to brew tea from snow. I enjoy the experience. I will not claim that this is better than what I make with my own water, which I pay attention to, which I filter in a particular way, and I add a particular type of imported charcoal. Yes, I get nerdy about the water too. When you add the charcoal, it's not to impart a taste. It's actually like a filter, and it can add some minerality to the water. You want a particular type of water that will bind in the best possible ways to the molecules in the tea that you want to taste. It's a very complex process, so I'm not going to claim that I understand all of it. I'm only going to claim that I know that different water types produce different results, and that by filtering and treating the water in the way I'm doing it, it produces results that are really eye-opening. So that occasionally when I have people over pre-COVID as guests and would make them tea, sometimes I would just give them a cup of the water when it was done. And sometimes I get this reaction like, holy crap, like, wow, that's really good water. The tea is mostly water. And if you don't have good water, you don't have good tea. It doesn't matter what the quality of the leaves are. In tea history, you wouldn't believe the lengths that people went to get good water and to tie in the terroir of water from a certain region with the plant from that region, the tea from that region. Great masters who could immediately tell when the water was not from the exact area, the exact stream, the exact source that they wanted, when it was one mountain over, and they would know because they were so sensitized to it. This is the legend. But I've seen enough to know that that is possible. My palate is good. I think I have a pretty good palate, but I remember when I was, before I went to grad school and I worked in the coffee industry, and you're younger, so you're more impressionable. You pick up things really quickly. I remember I worked in a coffee shop that was like third wave coffee avant la lettre, before the fact. And so in other words, we were doing, single estate coffees, and we were roasting, at least for the day, medium light. So we weren't just obliterating the terroir by over roasting. We had a roaster who knew that when you roast the coffee too dark, you're obliterating the terroir, its character. He's from Ethiopia. A guy named Misfin. All right, very, very passionate, very knowledgeable about coffee, and a good mentor to me. And I could get, like right now, if you brewed, I would probably know a Guatemalan. I'd like to think I would know a Guatemalan if it's a characteristic Guatemalan. I'd like to think I could get some of the varietals right off with some experience, like a more generic tasting Colombian versus a more generic tasting like coffee from the same region of the world. Would I immediately know, or would I have to wonder? I probably have to wonder. But at this point, when I'm still in my late 20s, I just remember people could brew the different coffees, and I could smell from 2 feet away, oh, that's the Colombian, that's the Guat, that's the Mexican. And that was how refined my sense of smell was. You lose that over time. It's inevitable. So, and that wasn't me trying to be fancy. That was like, holy crap, I can tell what that coffee is without knowing anything about it, other than it's a Colombian, I know. So if I can do that as someone whose head was elsewhere, I was getting ready for grad school, I wasn't interested in working in the coffee industry, then I'm sure someone who devotes themselves with a single-minded passion to something like tea could easily be able to immediately discern water sources, if that's something they've been paying attention to for a long time. Yeah. I don't even know if I'm agnostic anymore. I will say this is nice. This is an experience. This has been really, really enjoyable. But do I like it as much as the tea that I can make upstairs using my water filtration system? And I would say no. Glad I did it. It was really, really cool, but I am tasting my yard, and this is evoking my yard, and I don't want this to evoke my yard. I want this to evoke mountains. I want this to evoke places on a different scale than my backyard. I love my backyard. There's a lot to explore, a lot to understand, but there's nothing in the smell of it that is transcendent. So that's it. This is Brewing Tea Part 2 with using water from snow during a blizzard. First time experience for me, and I really enjoyed it. Don't know if I'll do it again anytime soon, but there you go. So actually, you know what I should do? Since I've been told, now normally I would have more water to really, really clean up here. I have very little water, so I'm just going to do a brief sort of rinse of everything. It's probably not even the best water to do this with. But this is part of the ritual, to clean up in some way and to put this to sleep in some way. I need to get a tea towel, and I need to do it maybe a little bit more formally and a little bit less in a haphazard manner. I do not try to do it in any way that people do who consider this kind of a ritual. I have made this syncretic. This is something that fits my needs. I can do a version of this in my office. When I'm busy editing and busy writing, I have a lot going on. I have ways of streamlining this process so that it fits where I'm at. And I'm aware of that. I'm aware that I'm sort of borrowing from different traditions and borrowing from different, even, this kind of gong fu thing was, it's my understanding that even though this is often spoken of as being this kind of ancient way of preparing tea, is something that people started doing outside of one small region in China in the 1970s. That's what I've been told. Not a tea historian. But why did it catch on? It caught on because it's a very effective way of enjoying and tasting tea and teasing out the parts of tea that make it more enjoyable, that make it not just something you do out of a habit where you just kind of mindlessly chug something for the caffeine, but something that opens up realms of aesthetic experience. And even if I would like to think that even if I'm not doing this, using tongs and using, some sort of tradition, in the spirit of the Enlightenment, in the spirit of the 18th century, I am adapting and thinking in terms of science and water quality and expediency and refinement and even individualism, and making this my own, and finding a little bit of peace within this experience. So that's it for part 2. Maybe I'll post this tonight. Maybe I'll post it tomorrow. Who knows? I hope all of my neighbors are staying warm and safe during the blizzard. The power hasn't gone out, so that's a good thing. I'm gonna let everybody go, and I'm gonna go get some work done because I have a lot